Good evening and thanks for joining us on Racing FM Weekly Wrap. Tonight we've got Dave Massey. Hi Dave.
Evening.
James Norris. Evening James.
Hi.
And Paul Ferguson. Hi Paul.
Hi Dan.
Tonight, like I said, what we said last week, we had a little bit of a look at the Sandown card on Friday, Saturday. A couple of interesting horses. Over the weekend, James had mentioned Dodging Bullets, but we'll touch on the Tingle Creek a little bit later. But we'll start with you, James, anyway, in relation to the Nicky Henderson novice and juvenile double on the Friday. Were you impressed with bivouac of Nicky Henderson's? Obviously, I think he had the first two actually with the Sirocco in just in behind as well.
Yeah, I was very impressed with bivouac. He's clearly a big, tall, scopy horse that they seem to like a lot at home. Son of Caliphate, the same as I said last week, the same sire as Calypto, who I took to last season. And it was interesting how Geraghty rode him, sort of keen to win cosily, and he would have won nice, probably very impressively had he not smashed the last. And he was forced to get a bit serious, but he still held off Stormforce 10, as you said, the Whaley Cohen owned and ridden son of Sirocco. And he uses sort of flat nous and flat speed to worry Bivouac, but he had too much when he came to him. And I think he's a really exciting prospect this season. It was just a shame to see Baraka El-Tai, who was odds-on favourite, I think it was 2 on or something, just bombing out completely. And they're happy to blame that on that soft ground they had at Cheltenham in November, behind Hargam and Golden Doyen. That would be interesting to see if you could really compare the form of those two races. And then also there was Gary Moore's horse behind, who ran well given he was carrying a £10 penalty. And it's interesting, I thought afterwards to hear that Andrew Cooper, the clerk of the course, wants to lower the class of the first juvenile hurdle of the season they have at Sandown, so that they haven't got to carry the £10 penalty next time, because he thinks it's a bit unfair. And Baron Alke obviously came out best of all at the weights. But yeah, definitely Bivouac's a really nice horse, and probably a proper triumph prospect listening to Henderson afterwards, because he said he'd think about chasing, but he's strong enough now that he'd be happy enough to aim him that way.
On the 2 mile novice hurdle, sorry, the 2 mile for the winter novices hurdle, do you think there's a lot to take out the race from the first 3 on? You've got Vitor de Rock, who's probably worth staying at the trip. You've got Tara Point, who's probably worth dropping back in trip, and Shantou Bob even going up further in trip.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make there. I think it was easy enough to watch that race and come out any of the top 3 as thinking you take them with you. They're the best prospect, but it was a race that was strongly built beforehand, and I think it delivered all 3 of them running particularly well. And yeah, Tara Point, you wouldn't hesitate to go back and trip the way she travelled, and she was a little bit keen, and she was just outstayed by the other 2, I thought. And of the 3, she's the one I'd be most interested in longer term. But as you say, Shantou Bob, yeah, it seemed all about stamina. He looked beaten at one point, and he just kept going. And it was difficult. It was really hard to tell whether he'd won or not on the line. He was just nudged out by Vitor de Rock, who I said last week was very beatable, and he probably was. But he's got there, and he's responded really well to pressure. And as you say, that trip seems to suit him. Well, I wouldn't mind him going up even further the way he stayed on. But I'm not convinced he's really a festival contender at this stage. But maybe if he went up in trip, he might be. Tara Point could be another interesting mare for that mare's race if she stays at this sort of trip, and Annie Power doesn't go. And I thought if Sam Davis had just been a little less aggressive, or she hadn't been quite so keen, she could have done those 2 behind for speed. And I'm looking forward to see her again, especially with her inexperience. There should be loads more to come from her and the other 2, as you say.
Paul, I think going into the weekend, you were obviously interested in Tara Point. As me and James just alluded to there, I think there's a lot of positives to take out of the race. Would you be interested in a back down and trip?
Yeah, I think certainly on again, like James alluded to, I think she just needs to learn to settle a little bit, drop her head. She jumped particularly well, I thought, down the back straight, and turning in, you would have thought she had them good, to be honest. Probably the stiff finish on the background. I think she'll appreciate a sounder service myself. but definitely, yeah, definitely one to take from the race. And we haven't touched on Odo Abchayo. He actually came there turning in. If you go back and watch the video again, you'd probably say he was going to be the biggest threat to the mare in front. He travelled particularly well. I don't know if it was the ground that found him out and up the home straight either, but he's certainly not one to give up on yet. And again, like James said, I think he was conceding £10 to point. If you'd said to me beforehand, I would have been slightly disappointed. Defeated the Rock could win. I think he's slightly flattered by his official rating. I think he was rated 147 before Friday, so I'm not sure what they'll put him up to. You'd be looking possibly in the 150s. Whether he's actually that good at the moment, so I'd have my question marks going forward towards the spring festivals. But certainly as a long-term prospect with fences in mind, I think he's one to keep in mind for that. But like James said, I'm not sure he'd be up to winning a novice hurdle at the festival at this stage.
Dave, like I said, on Shantu Bob, another good performance from Warren Greatrex novice hurdler. I know One Track Man didn't read the script at the weekend, but you've got Warren Tor earlier in the week. You had Shantu Bob on Friday. It looks as though he's got a decent hand and a decent marker to find out where he stands in relation to the rest of his rivals going forward.
Yeah, I think you've sort of named the three there that I think Warren thinks the most of, with Warren to Shantu Bob and One Track Mind, from what we can gather. Shantu Bob's probably the more forward of the three, I think. The most forward, I should say, those three, I think, at the moment. And for me, he looks the one that, at the moment, right now, needs a step up in trip, I think. Yeah, Warrington was impressive. One Track Mind just did his own thing and wanted to lark around a bit on Saturday, unfortunately. Decided that he'd rather jump the sand path rather than go over it and ship Gavin, which is a bit of a shame. I think long term, One Track Mind might be the one of the three that hopefully will prove to be the best long term prospect. And hopefully, when he sees a fence, it make him grow up a little bit. For this season, who knows where he's going to go next now? We just need to teach him how to race properly more than anything. It was good to see him come back in the straight and as you've alluded to, Dan, before we started the broadcast, sort of pop the hurdles straight. That's the only time he's ever raced in his life, I think. And it was good to see that he could actually race alongside horses, and the way that he's popped those without a jockey on his back shows you how well he's been scored. So. But Shantu Bob, I was impressed with Shantu Bob. I thought he's both the front toe. I know what Paul's saying about, is he really is Vita the Rock really a 151 horse at the moment? You sort of think he probably can't be, and I think Shantu Bob's not a million miles away. So bearing that in mind, I think Vita the Rock might actually be a 150 horse. As I say, time will tell with the power, but I wasn't too with it.
You mentioned there about obviously One Track Man's future might be over fences eventually. One who did actually open his account over fences after a bit of a blemish at Newby was Sapphire de Rey. James, it's the second time Paul Nicholls has put the full roller on top of on a horse's nose. He did it with Irving at Newcastle. Obviously, there's jockey switch, Sam Tristan Davies to Nick Schofield. It was the same combo this time. STD to Nick Schofield and a big roller on his nose. It was nice. Obviously, it was nice to see him the way that he won on Friday. Was it the performance you were sort of expecting at Newbury? James? Oh, we lost him. Paul, we'll go to you for Sapphire de Rey. Was it nice to see him open his account over fences on Friday?
Yeah, he done it well, yeah. What I would say is I'm pretty sure that Deputy Dan didn't run his race. If you watch the race back, he didn't seem happy at any time, so just a slight bit of caution on the note of the amount of form. Like, the horse he beat, Horizontal Speed's not a bad horse for Philip Hobbs's, but I definitely think Deputy Dan, he was struggling. He had to be ridden into every fence. He just didn't look happy throughout, and I wouldn't be surprised if something come out in the week that he wasn't totally himself. But the winner, he couldn't do any more than beat what's in front of him. He did jump well. I spoke to Nick over the weekend. He was delighted with the way he jumped. And I believe he said today now they're going to step up and trip and go go for the Feltham, I think, on Boxing Day. I know I wasn't on here last week, but I spoke to you a couple of times, and I kind of hoping that Willie Mullen sends Valser Lido that way as well. We've heard today now that Forheen could be coming over on Boxing Day. Obviously, Champagne Fever was already penciled in, so if he's trying to keep all these novices apart, given his record racing right-handed and the fact that he's saying he wants to try him over 3 miles, I think the race looks ideal for Valser Lido as well. So that could be brewing up into a hot contest, and it's probably the obvious way to go with Sapphire de Roy, given that he's won at Kempton already, and the step up in trip will be a positive for him.
Dave, we'll come to you for the Saturday action at Sandown. Obviously, the headline act was the Tingle Creek. We sadly lost Oscar Whiskey, who has been a stalwart in the national hunt scene for the last few years, with his victories at Cheltenham in the lead up to the festival, and Ascot, and obviously the entry in the National Hunt Festival. What was it? Simply a case of dodging bullets being the cleaner of all the jumpers in the race, or is he the best of a bad bunch?
I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between, doesn't it? Obviously, Summersby finishing second, bless him, has been around a few seasons now, and that probably holds down the form a little bit. He's capable of top class form on his day, but you have to say his better days are behind him. So in some ways that's going to hold the form down. But yeah, on the day, Dodgy Bullets was the one that certainly jumped the best. I want to believe the form because obviously I'm an Uxizandra fan for the champion chase, and Uxizandra put Dodging Bullets to bed pretty quick after the last at Cheltenham and the Schleur. So I'd like to believe the form, and it's believable form, because as I say, with Summersby being there, you've actually got a horse that's been a Grade 1, Grade 2 horse over the years, so it's believable form. Is it good form? As I say, it falls between two stools, doesn't it? It's a difficult one. I'd like to believe the form, and I still think that Uxizandra on the back of that is going to be the one to beat in the champion chase.
James, just before I lost you there, on Dungeon Bullets, he's probably the cleanest jumper out the whole field. Is it a bit of a worry that the third intention loomed up between the last two, even though thinking that possibly had a chance? Boulder Sousa's jumping seemed to go to pot, leaving the pond. I think it was approaching the pond fence or leaving the last of the railway fences. Jumping the name of the game and win it on Saturday?
Yeah, I guess so, although I think there's no reason, as Dave said, there's no reason to deny he could be the best horse in that race at this time. Paul's success made that mistake at the last railway fence, and then that sort of knocked his impetus a bit, didn't it? And then he made another mistake at the second last, so that was disappointing to see. But third intention can do that and loom up in decent races and not find too much. But I think Dodging Bullets essentially ran a very similar race to what he did at Cheltenham. He travelled really nicely, jumped impeccably again. This time he found a bit more with that run under the belt, and also, as there's no Uxizandra in the race that he had to chase down. And I think that Saturday Tingle Creek was more actually about horses that weren't there than were there, like Uxizandra, his form boosted by the winner, and Alfroth's form getting boosted by Summersby running so well. And then obviously you think about the horses that are missing, and Sprint Sacre and Side Grusion, if they were somewhere near their best, they probably come away with a convincing win. But Paul Nicholls has always been bullish about Dodging Bullets, so he's looking forward to a decent campaign now, I think. But as the Warriors, he often seems to run poorly in the spring, so as a champion chase contender, he's probably more iffy in that sense than iffy in the sense that form wasn't up to much, I think, especially when you consider the doubts over everything else seemingly heading that way.
Yeah, Paul, as James mentioned there, Dodging Bullets seems to be a revelation leading into Christmas, and from the new year onwards, he's not seemingly himself. Would that be a worry for you going into looking at the likes of the champion chase, possibly if Sprinter Sacre and Side Grugy doesn't come back? We've had a positive update today with Side Grugy, so that sounds positive, but Dodging Bullets a place chance, or do you think, as James mentioned there, he just tails off?
His form tells you he tails off. Whether he's a different animal now, he's a bit older, I don't know. To be honest, he's never been a horse I've particularly taken to, even in his early juvenile days. But I wouldn't be rushing to look at the Tingle Creek form there in terms of the Champion Chase. The only thing is, where's the winner going to come from? Unless, like Dave says, Uxas Andre, you're really hoping something comes back now, because the division is looking pretty weak. If that's as good as we've got at the moment, no disrespect to the horses involved, we are looking at a slightly thinner division than usual. So we've got to only hope that Sprinter Sacrand or Sire de Grugy come back. Otherwise, you might end up with the imponderable of, will Willie Mullins consider throwing a novice in the race? It's not something I do, but it's an unusual season, and the fact that he's got so many 2-milers, if for instance Underso comes out and wins well next time, puts his fall behind him, and they don't want to send Vittor up and trip. There's always the chance there that he could send one of them that way, possibly if it does look as weak on the day. But plenty of time ahead, and as I say, hopefully there's a bit more positive news in terms of Sire de Grugy's progress. So hopefully one of them will be back in the new year.
Speaking of novices, obviously we'll go to the Henry VIII novices chase. Going into the race, I was looking at Vabito Valtat and Cork Minstrel as possibly 2 Grand Annual or Red Rum Chase hopes in the spring festivals. Turned out Vabito Valtat won this not fairly comfortably, but well enough, barring a mistake for Dunraven Storm at the last. I think that, did he put himself in the Arkle picture for you, Paul?
Yeah, I think definitely he's got to be enter the equation now. Again, slightly below par renewal, you could say, the Henry VIII. But he could do no more than Mirth or Feely give him a fine ride. He does need Everton to fall right, which is why you would consider him as a handicap possibility for the races that you've mentioned. But I think, having won that on Saturday now, I think they'll probably look at Kempton, the Wayward Lad, something like that, and then try and put him away ready for the Arkle. He certainly deserves his place in the lineup like that. And touching on Court Minstrel again, he's an obvious type for something like the Grand Annual or the Red Run, but as you mentioned with Vita de Rocky, I think Court Minstrel was rated 154 before Saturday, which I'm just starting to get a bit of a bee in my bonnet about the marks that these novices are getting handed. It's just that each year it just gets more, I don't know, it just goes, do you seem to be so lofty? I don't know, what was his peak over hurdles? And he's won 2 novice chases, and he's on 154. Obviously they'll be hoping he come down because he run on completely the wrong ground. He'd be a horse you'd want in mind for something fresh on decent ground is what he's all about. So he mightn't run again now until March or April, but you'd still want to see him come down a few pounds from 154 for such a competitive handicap, and he'd be running against much more seasoned chasers. I think at the moment they're just quite quick into giving them these lofty handicap ratings. I've marked a couple down in case at the end we do what we've been doing the past couple of weeks, looking forward to a couple. Champagne West, I noticed, has entered on Saturday. I think they're giving him a provisional rating of 152 after 152 after one win when he missed 6 fences out. I think a couple of years ago, Trevolgan won the RSA off and then won the Hennessy off at 151.
Well, you only have to look at...
Just shows the way they're going with the handicap marks, in my opinion.
Well, Many Clouds won the Hennessy off 151, so he's already rated higher than Hennessy.
Yeah, there you go. After half a novice chase, or 2/3 of a novice chase at Cheltenham.
Would you? I think today, Dave, Court Minstrel's been written or scrubbed off until obviously the spring festivals. Would you be looking at 33 66s on the machine for a possible Arkle tilt for him?
Dead right, I would. Yeah, I think in some ways he's the most interesting horse to come out of Saturday's race. Never for one moment did he look happy on that ground. I thought Maloney was already nudging before the railway fences. He couldn't put a line through that. Look, we know what Court Minstrel is like. We know he's a spring horse. We know he needs good ground. When he gets those conditions, he's a different horse. And although he's won at Ludlow, I know he won a couple of contests at Ludlow. That nearly came out wrong. I think he's happier left-handed. I've just got the back of my head. I've got it. He's left-handed. Look, he's jumped 2 out at the last here at Sandown. I know he's tired, but he's way out to his right at both of them. And it could just be that he's tired on that ground. But I've got a feeling he's happier left-handed as well. So in some ways,
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, he's the interesting horse out of the race. Vibrato Volta. It's a strange race too. I've watched it back a couple of times, and it's a strange race between 2 out and 1 out. Vibrato Volta beat, and then at the last, Dunraven Storms landed in a heap. Irish Storms jumped it all right, but not landed with any great momentum, and then suddenly Vibrato Volta's there on the scene. There's a bit of as your father up the running, and the one horse that you might think might be a little bit quirky and think about it has gone away and up the hill powered away from him. So it's form that's I think it's quite difficult to read. Vibrato Volta's got to take his chance now, surely, in the Arkle, you would have thought on the back of it. But it's a difficult race to read, I thought.
James, how did you read Henry VIII?
Yeah, I think it is difficult to read, isn't it? I suspect the first 3 are all very similar in terms of ability. And
problem. I think he's having some internet problems again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on, James.
Yeah, I think the first 3 are very similar in terms of ability, and it just depends on how the race is run. I suspect it could go any of 3 ways, and it just happened that Vibrato Volta was sorted out best, even though that was probably surprising given how he performed previously. I think Irish Saint is probably going to be better over a little bit further, but I don't think there are any stars in that field.
Away from the 2 grade ones on the card, we had a Nicky Henderson treble over hurdles. We had the not too far AP double in Snake Eyes and Cup final, but we also had Karachi Apache in the novice hurdle beating Clean Sheet and ASO. James, was there anything to get? Will either of those 3 get a mention on your Supreme blog this week?
Well, yeah, the Karachi Apache race was interesting. I think more in terms of Clean Sheet's performance. He came last year to Henderson's with a big reputation, I thought, off the point-to-point field, and that form seemed to work out. But he missed last season for some reason, and through probably an injury. And then this Saturday, he looked like the winner for most of the straight and most of the run, and just probably got tired on the ground. And he rode a race in Karachi. She was probably more of a stayer and just did him at the end. But I think it was very promising Clean Sheet, and success is coming as well, I suspect, this season.
Paul, I think you're lucky enough to be at Aintree on Saturday with the 30 odd thousand taking up the free tickets opportunity there. You've kept an eye on obviously the novice bumper form. The bumper form from last year. Ballybowley finally got his head in front for Darryl Jacob and Nigel Twiston-Davies. Good enough performance?
Yeah, I think his jumping won a day. To be honest, the only bet I had over the weekend was the runner-up Great Try. I backed him each way before the Beast of Burden came out, and he, despite the winner doing it well, I think Great Try is still the horse to take out of the race. He'd come on from his bumper run at the track in October when Nichols was openly saying he was late in and he needed the run more than a lot of his who were coming off the run at the time. He travelled well down the back and made a serious error at the 3rd last, which probably took all winning chance away from him, and he could never look like from there on in clawing back Ballybowley, who just kept rolling. Obviously, I think the track suits him. He settled slightly better this time, and so he jumped with aplomb down the back. So it was a good performance from the winner, but I'd certainly take the second. That'd be the one I'd be taking out of the opening and novice hurdle.
And the 2 mile 4 handicap hurdle was about time that Dowland got its head in front, but it didn't look as though it was going to be the case until the shadows of the post. No,
it's still slightly bizarre. Like the race at Haydock a couple of weeks earlier, what he ran in, and we said the same again. Then it was a strange race to watch. You watched the race back. He travelled sweetly to about, I think, between the 3rd and 2nd last. Then he looked in trouble and ducked in behind, and then it was only once he was switched out outside the last. Even I watched it back again last night, and only inside probably the last 150 yards that he really got motoring. I know I read the Racing Post reviews afterwards saying he's an obvious type for one of the festival handicaps. He'll certainly need to hold his position better if he's to be competitive in one of them races. In my opinion, if he loses your position 2 or 3 out in one of the bigger field handicaps at the festival, I don't think he'll be able to claw it back. But at least he knuckled his head down because he's been called a couple of names earlier in the year, but he knuckled down and got there on the line to nut his stablemate, Bears Affair, and think that the lad on board would have been riding his first winner for Nicky Henderson, so I think he was a bit gutted afterwards. But a 1-2 for the stable, and as you said, just touching on, I couldn't quite hear what James was saying, sorry, but touching on those at Sandown, I thought McCoy was good on Cup Final and Snake Eyes in particular. The way it was like as if he had to finesse him on between those two rivals. You seen after the last what his head carriage was like, and I thought everyone's always saying AP's at the best in the drive and finish. I thought he was good on both Cup Final and especially Snake Eyes on Saturday.
I agree with that. He was good on both accounts. Dave, before we get to the national fences, one which didn't really have many fences was the 3 mile listed chase. 4 furlong or half a mile flat race from turning in. It's not really going to be much of a pointer towards a Gold Cup, or was it?
No, I don't think it was. No, it turned into a 3 mile 1 furlong bumper, didn't it? More or less, it was a bit of a shame. Had there been some fences in the way, he might have got a slightly different result. I don't know. It certainly suited Sam Winner, the fact that he was able to keep rolling up the straight. He's a difficult horse to pass when he gets like that. Sam Winner looks. I mean, somebody suggested that he might be a Gold Cup horse. I don't think he's a Gold Cup horse. I don't quite think he's that class, but he's certainly an interesting one for a national. I would have thought at some point. He's looking more and more. Who'd have thought it? He's looking more and more like an out-and-out stayer. Actually, the longer he goes on, and that never really looked like the case. I thought Matthew was a bit disappointed. Actually, came there, I thought, to win it. Lugged in behind. Didn't really want to go past. A little bit disappointing. Hollywell, well, again, jumping frailties have come to the fore, I'm afraid, and the poor run of John Joe just keeps on rolling. Their look's got to change at some point, has to. I think they are now like naught from 17 now in December, John Joe's, and they weren't much better in December. I think they had 4 winners in November, I should say. So at some point, in the new year, that stable's going to really start firing, and when they do, they're going to have some reasonably well handicapped horses in that yard. So it's a shame Hollywell couldn't get around, because if he had got as far as making the straight, he'd have had a chance without the fences in the way. So, but yeah, as far as the
it's ironic because once the race started, the sun disappeared. Literally, as the race started, I'm not no word of a lie. The sun completely disappeared and there was nothing on the track. It was. I half expected them to run out and take the dolls off the fences. It was quite frustrating. And touching on what Dave said about Marfield, I thought she would have been better off with the fence. Given how she jumped, she made one mistake, but she didn't have to pick her feet over some of the fences. I thought she jumped best out of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
On Sam Winner, it's interesting that they're more like. It seems as though the idea is they're going to go to Argento with Black Thunder rather than Argento with Sam Winner. If as a Gold Cup horse, would you be more on the side of Black Thunder with an Argento one, or Sam Winner at I don't know, Newbury in the Aeon Chase or something? Would you side with Sam Winner or Black Thunder as a Gold Cup prospect?
If I had to choose between the two, Black Thunder for me, I think is a bit more class.
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if either was good enough for a Gold Cup, to be honest. But I don't know. Nichols likes the Aeon approach. You never know. And Sam Winner's he's progressing. To be fair to him, and he knuckled down well on Saturday because, as Dave said, he come to him to challenge him, and he wasn't for passing on Saturday. So both deserve to have a crack at one of the trials, especially in, again, talking about different divisions, but again, at the minute it looks an open division. But they'll both take the chance in the trial and then take things from there.
James, would you be looking at the Gold Cup for either Black Thunder or Sam Winner?
Well, I don't think Black Thunder will be up to it. I think Sam Winner's probably a better horse, but he must be a bit slow as well, surely, for the Gold Cup. But I mean, he deserves, as Paul's saying, deserves a chance at one of those trials, and he ran well on Aeon Chase Day last year behind Smad, so hopefully can learn more then, I suspect.
We'll go to the big fences at Aintree, and it was difficult to pick a better ride out with the Samuel Colin double. I'm more of the opinion that Cedric Blur was a better ride purely because he did everything which he could to try and win it. And the ride on Oscar time was, yes, he was brave in holding his position and not chasing Conor O'Farrell on Our Father. But Dave, what is it? Just another Sam Rayleigh Cohen masterclass? It's a specialist track. He's just ability to focus on it, and he's on a level playing field to a point.
Yeah, it is. He's just different gravy, isn't he, over these fences? What was a brilliant ride in the Fox Hunters last year, wasn't it? What was the Fox Hunters when we rode that he gave a superb ride to? Is it both of them? It's cool. Terrific horse that was. But he just seems to know the right time on these horses of when to go at Aintree. It's not just a case of he rides Aintree well. He knows the horses that he's riding well, and he knows their capabilities in relation to Aintree, I think. And yeah, it was a terrific. It's one of those results actually where you look back, and I think the fact that he's a 13-year-old might have put you off a little bit, but you look back and you think, how did that go off 25 to 1? How did I not have a couple of quid on it? Yeah, terrific ride from Sam Way. He's had a lot of people give him a lot of stick over the years, and it's been generally unwarranted.
Me included.
Yeah, he's been, all right, he's made mistakes, but what jockey hasn't made mistakes? Show me a jockey that hasn't made a mistake or two over his career, for goodness sake. And it's not even like he's a professional, so I think all credit to him again for getting Oscar timing home. The interesting one for me was Saint R in behind him third, who for the second time running looked really well at Cheltenham, just didn't come up the hill there, back on a flatter track here. Had it not been for a mistake on the far side, I think it was about 4 from home, I think he'd gone very close to winning this, and he's still on a very nice mark. If handicapper doesn't clobber him, I think he's a very interesting one for the National.
National horse, yeah?
I think so, yeah. I do. I really think he's the more I see, I think Tom George is going to make him a bit more sturdy, if you like. I think he'll get the trip. I really do. I think he'll get the trip. I think it's a very interesting one. Now he's had a spin over these fences. I think he's an interesting one for the National.
Thinking of races in between, I'd be looking at, is it the Doncaster Yorkshire Chase or something that they've got a 3-mark?
Sky Bet now, isn't it? Yeah.
Paul, one of the horses I was impressed in the race when I looking back was Mendip Express. I think he lost 5 lengths at the start. He was allowed to coast into it. He looked a bit scruffy at first, but he warmed to the task, and I thought he finished with plenty of running and pointed to it, if they wanted to, a possible national till concern. I think this was he's only had half a dozen rule starts now.
Yeah, definitely. I marked 3 down. Touching on what Dave said about the rides from Sam Rayleigh Cohen, it was fine. I think it was Warren, wasn't it, in the Fox Hunters, and he got first run, didn't he? On he took the race by the scruff of the neck, didn't he? That was a good ride that day in April. As for Saturday's race, I thought it was a really strong renewal. I thought the Grand Sefton was a bit weak, but the Beecher was probably the strongest renewal we've seen in some time. Obviously, Oscar Time had the experience and got the job done, but the 3 placed horses certainly come out with credit. Dave touched on Saint R. Dave and myself were actually talking about him after he finished third at Cheltenham the time before, and we both said he'd probably be of interest back at Aintree. I was more thinking about a handicap in the spring on the mild make horse, to be honest, where he's done well in the past. But given how the spin he had there, as Dave alluded to, he made a mistake at a crucial time. He's got to be on people's radars already for the Grand National. Mendip Express, like you say, he was the only one of the front rank to come from behind, and he was given, well, as you say, he lost a bit at the start, and he was given plenty of time to get into the race. As you say, he's a lot less experienced than the others around him, and even Alfie Spinner ran well because he was front rank and then seemed to get outpaced and then came battling back. I think he was about 6th or 7th. Then he took really well to the fences. The only thing I'm surprised he's not actually won a race since Christmas 2011. I think he's now only won from 20 over fences, but certainly like the shape he made over them, and though he looks an out-and-out stayer, just wonder if he didn't make it into the National, if he got into the top or something, and he just tried to allow him to bowl along and bomb off from the front possibly. I don't know if that would be a different tactics, but if I was forced to pick one out of the race, I'd probably go with Mendip Express myself in terms of the Grand National. I thought it was fine. Right? The only thing with him is we yet to see that he can handle really decent ground, but you don't tend to get it genuinely good on the national course these days anyway, so he should be alright on that score.
James, the two national fences race for you, is there anything to take out of it, or was it just sit and applaud Sam Willie-Corn?
Well, there's certainly a bit of that, wasn't there? But yeah, I mostly agree with what Paul said about Mental Express. He gave away the ground at the start, and he just picked them one by one and gradually walked to it. And he certainly looks a proper national player after that, I think.
Well, unless anyone else has got anything to say about Saturday's card as a whole, we can move over to Ireland and start off with you, James, in the novice hurdle division. I think for me, a lot of the interest was taken away with No More Heroes being a non-runner in the Stayers novice hurdle at Cork. But Black Hercules, where do you side with him? Is he another Briar Hill or Briar Hill mode, or are you thinking he's going to be a bit susceptible this year?
Well, it's difficult to tell, I think, at the moment. But I was impressed with how he jumped in particular at Cork. Really never gave Alfred Zobo a chance to get near him because he never made any sort of mistake and just took ground out of him at each hurdle. I was a bit surprised to see him go 3 miles so soon, but I guess Wiley has Nichols Canyon and Shane's Hill for shorter races. So if you want to pick off the decent price in Ireland, you might as well get there now because he's going to be over 3 miles eventually, and I suspect that's his long-term target. At this sort of trip, whether he's susceptible or not, he probably is. He doesn't strike the superstar quite yet, but I think he did the job well enough, and he's worth looking forward to seeing him again next time. And I wouldn't mind if he dropped the trip either. I think he's probably got enough for
that. Paul, it was a bit of a mixed bag for Gigginstown at Punchestown. You had Don Cossack winning the John Durkin, but Una 2 taking out half the fence in the beginner's chase. What did you make of Don Cossack's performance and the idea that they're going to just leave him fresh now for the Ryanair match?
Yeah, I can understand the decision, and I think the trip's right for him. I think he is best just shy of 3 miles. That the race he sort of ended up getting left in front early on yesterday, but it probably didn't do him any harm, to be honest, because I think he, given a soft lead, I think he's pretty good over that sort of distance. Thought he was a worthy winner. I don't think there was any mistake about that. Touching on the the beginner's chase, Marla Beach was one of the two from Ireland over the weekend that I'd noted down. I wanted to mention anyway. Yeah, admittedly, 1 or 2 probably didn't run his race, partly maybe because he'd been off for so long, but probably due to the fact that, as you've mentioned, that he took the fence with him. I think the 3rd or 4th fence, wasn't it? How he stood up, I don't know. It must have took a lot out of him. And he was, to be honest, he was on the short side, odds on, facing a race fit rival who had a run over a trip slightly shorter than ideal. I think Malabeach, the way he did it, even though he probably didn't beat as much with 1 or 2 not running up to form. And there was a lot to like about the way he went away in the closing stages. And when he steps up to 3 miles and gets off the ground, I think he'll be an interesting contender. I'd assume he'd go for the Topaz novice chase at Leopardstown over Christmas, and he'll probably bump into Dom Poley and the likes. But he's always likely to come up against one of Willie Mullins as a hot pot, so he's probably going to keep going slightly under the radar and not get the praise that he should. I think he could end up being a 4-miler. Gordon Elliott mentioned. And the other one I wanted to mention was Wounded Warrior, who did it nicely at Navan the day before, Frank in the form of Don Poley. He ran well in defeat twice behind that and Shanahan's turn. He done well getting his head in front, beating Blood Cottiel quite well. And I know Noel Meade thinks quite a fair bit of him, and they'd certainly be the two. Actually, I haven't had a chance to look back at the bumpers yet from Ireland, but of the races that I have seen, they'd be the two that I'd take out of the weekend.
Dave, I was on a 2, didn't exactly put in a flawless jumping performance. Wishful thinking that Huntingdon did in the Peterborough chase. Were you surprised by his SP of 13-2, and it's like say earlier in the season, I was very much of the opinion that's a bit of a flashback to the early 2010s, isn't it, with all these Hobbs and Waitley going in?
Yeah, they're having a whale of a time of it. Yeah, I was at Huntingdon on Sunday. I'm always an advocate. I've always sort of said, that I like, I like a chase to have the right result in so much as the horse that jumps the best wins, because that's what steeplechasing's all about. It's not just about travelling well. You've got to jump them well too. And he's barely put a foot wrong all the way around, actually, wishful thinking. And a really good leap at the last catch of it when Edouard made his mistake. Yeah, I mean, one of the nicest things I've ever seen on a racecourse actually happened on Sunday, and I did tweet it at the time. But the moving the Peterborough Chase to Sunday was a brilliant idea. Well done, Huntingdon. Don't move it from Sunday now. Please leave it there. They got a really good, knowledgeable racing crowd, and as they came into the straight for the first time, and they jumped the first in the straight, the whole crowd went silent. We made a pin drop as they were waiting for them to come to that open dish in front of the stands. And the sort of the oohs and ahs they got as wishful thinking leapt it was something to quite listen to and quite behold. One of the nicest things I've ever seen on a racecourse. I have to say. So yeah, the right result for me. Yeah, I thought going down. I didn't have a bet in the race, but going down we were sort of discussing the race, and I thought it wouldn't be at all a surprise given the sort of form of the yard this year. Wishful thinking, just rolling back the years, isn't he? And the right result for me.
On the Sunday card, obviously we had Donald McCain banging in a treble, which many thought was a signal that the yard's getting in a bit full swing. Dave, you mentioned a little bit earlier about John Joe O'Neill and his haphazard performance so far, purely on winners. We saw last year with Alan King closing his yard over I think it was might have been late January, mid to late January last year, and obviously Donald McCain has done it earlier this year. First of all, I think it takes balls to do that, and do you think in the long run it's going to be beneficial to the yard to hopefully they pinpoint something and move forward?
We're talking about the Canes yard here. Yeah. Something's clearly not being right with the McCain horses for quite a while now. There's been no consistency, as you alluded to. They banged 3 winners in, and it's generally assumed then that they're all going to start coming back and running to something like form again. Look today. You only got to look today at Musselburgh, the way DeSoto counties are on. There's a well-handicapped, well, should be a well-handicapped horse who's travelled well throughout the race, come there between 3 out and 2 out to win the race. He's not in the first 6. That can't be right. There has to be something wrong for so many horses from that yard to travel as well as they do and cut out as quickly as they do. Whether I don't know. Now I'm no expert in these matters. I don't know. I'm looking at it purely from a punter's perspective and a punter's point of view. I find it extremely difficult to read any race that Donald McCain has a runner in. The odds that they are almost irrelevant. You're almost playing Russian roulette every time you have a bet in one of the races because you've no idea what you're going to get with the horse. It may well be beneficial to him and perhaps even to a lesser extent to John Joe's, whether they could. I mean, Jack Dawes is so big, perhaps they could section some of them off and find out what the root cause of the problem is with these horses at the moment. Because it's a shame to see them running as badly as they are doing. There's so many good horses running way below their marks. I mean, if you have a look at John Joe's, just have a look at John Joe's last dozen runners. They're not just getting beat; they're getting slaughtered. They're nowhere near their marks. Even average horses, they're really nowhere near where they should be doing, which signifies that there has to be some sort of issue. And it's a real shame to see at this stage of the season. I think we're coming into a time of the year now where there's a lot of big trials coming up for these yards. But as you were right to sort of say, Dan, it worked for Alan King last year, worked a treat for him. He came back, he had fresh horses in the spring that hadn't been slogging around on winter ground, and perhaps it might work for 1 or 2 other trainers this winter as well.
James, we'll look at wrapping this up now. Was there any other performances in the week that noticeably took your eye, either UK or in Ireland, or any horses to look out for this week?
Well, I missed out, didn't I? I took my Saturday Roux because I thought he was really impressive. I'm sure you've already touched on it, but I'm quite surprised that Paddy Power is still 16-1 for the RSA for him, because I was so taken with that performance, and he's going to Felton next, and I'd expect him to win that if he can repeat something like he did at Exeter on Friday. But obviously I'm looking forward to Cheltenham this week. So Sunrise has entered the novice chase against King's Palace again on Friday. I know the Felton is an option for him as well, but if they take each other on again, there's an £8 pull in the weights, I think, and it's a furlong further, and I think Socially Sunrise could have a chance of reversing that fall. I'm also looking forward to the sale on Friday as well, because I've been a fan of Highland Lodge for a long time. He's been disappointing recently, but his full brother is for sale there, Minmore Lodge. So I'll go and look at him. He's a point-to-point winner. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Don't put your hand up.
No, but just what he's like, and see if Emerald buys him again. I suspect he probably will, given closing ceremony at Haydock again a couple of weeks ago. And obviously the new one at Cheltenham in the International is probably the highlight of the whole weekend.
Paul, yourself, what are you looking forward to this week, and also what took your eye last week?
Last week, it was quite a quiet week, to be honest. I thought Sunbuckle was quite good on his hurdles debut at Southall. I think it was Tuesday, was it? Another winner from the Grade 1 Punchestown race, which I thought would work out well, and is working out particularly well. There's one entered at Hexham on Wednesday from that race called Anik now, a 4-year-old that bolted up at the track last year in a bumper on soft ground for Philip Kirby. And then he went over and run the Grade 1, and unsurprisingly, found it all a bit too much. But he could face Chieftain's Choice and It's High Time, both course and distance winners, at Hexham on Wednesday, so he could be a decent novice hurdle for the track there. Certainly one to look out for. And I know I touched on him before, joking about his handicap mark, but I'm looking forward to seeing Champagne West back out at Cheltenham on Saturday, hopefully in the 2 mile 5 novice chase. And I echo what James said about the potential clash in the novice chase on Friday. Certainly wouldn't be at all surprised to see Sausalito Sunrise get a lot closer, if not turn the tables, on King's Palace. I actually think he'll appreciate the better ground, Sausalito Sunrise, as well, despite people saying he wants soft ground. I always think he's at his best on a decent surface, so I think he'll have things in his favour on Friday.
And Dave, yourself, anything from last week on your travels, or what are you looking forward to? You going racing this week, and what in particular?
Yeah, there was 2 I saw last week. One at Ludlow on Wednesday when I was there. I think Vivaccio of Venetia Williams is a handicapper going places. Really stood out in the paddock beforehand. He's a real big lump of a horse. He'll probably want a little bit further in time than 2 mile, although at the moment 2 mile seems to suit him absolutely fine. Despite rooting one down the back, he's absolutely sauntered clear of these, and a marker 125 is nowhere near the bottom of where they are with him. And I'll give a mention to one at Exeter as well on Friday, a horse that I backed a few times last season and disappointed, wasn't finishing his races off, but Ultra Gold of Colin Tizard's might be quite an interesting one to follow now. Jumped much better on Friday and finished his race off for the first time, really. And it was interesting, that was the first time he was without a tongue tie. Now, I've not seen any quotes, but I can only assume that, given that the tongue tie wasn't there and he's now finished his race off, that he may well have had some sort of procedure to help his breathing. But if that's the case, he's travelled like a really good horse against some good novices last season. And again, he looks off a very, very low handicap mark, and hopefully he can go on from this.
Thanks a lot, gents. Cheers, Dave. Cheers, James. Cheers, Paul. We'll be back same time next week to wrap up the action at the international meeting at Cheltenham with the December Gold Cup, and also, like I say, the new one in the international. Wish you good luck in the punting, and we'll see you then. Thanks, gents.
Cheers.